Thank you for watching my Deadlock theory presentation on how to actually play Pocket. The purpose of this guide is to frame Pocket's kit in the context of the MOBA he is in and how you use it to win. I see a lot of people picking Pocket and playing him honestly and straightforward like any other hero, whereas his game plan facilitates a different style of play from traditional front-to-back heroes. I wanted to quickly break down how to actually play Pocket from early to mid and get the most out of his kit, as well as what items and stats benefit him the most. So, why play Pocket? First and foremost, Pocket is extremely slippery and has evasive skills that double as offensive burst. This allows you to be a nuisance, and the enemy will feel like they have little counterplay outside of buying items to specifically shut you down. Being a pain in the ass is accomplished through decreasing the cooldown on your skills, buying mobility, and getting tanky. You'll survive a lot of situations other heroes would simply melt in, which is a nice power fantasy. Second, Barrage. This ability is busted, which is probably why Valve nerfs it every patch. It shoots 4 times and amps all your damage each time it hits. This ability lets Pocket dominate lanes, surprise people with burst, and stay relevant in the late game. Next, Big Impact Burst. Pressing all your buttons on top of someone will do a lot of hard to avoid near instant damage, which is of course increased by Barrage. And importantly, he creates advantageous fights. With high mobility and chase, barrage for free stats, and many tools to dodge key abilities, Pocket is adept at only taking fights he knows he's going to win and escaping the ones you don't, making it easier to snowball. He has all the tools to dictate the pace of fights and doesn't rely on teammate setup, which is unique because he doesn't need hard crowd control to accomplish this. Finally, he's just plain fun. So let's move on to the game plan. You'll hear me reference this a lot in the presentation because you live and die by how well you can execute it. There are a few key steps to executing the game plan, which are as follows. First is taking fights using the element of surprise. You get around the map fast, show up to fights in progress, and flip them on their heads or clean them up. Try to surprise the enemy with every engagement. You don't want to take fair fights, you want to manufacture advantageous ones for yourself. Pocket does not participate in front-to-back honest team fights, he dives in and causes chaos. Use your barrage from an elevated position, be that majestic leap or kinetic dash, or a rooftop, to stack damage amp, then land on their heads and press your buttons. Get in, get out, get in. If I could explain his gameplay in as little words as possible, it's this. Considering your burst damage from abilities comes out rather quickly, and since affliction value increases with time, you want to go in, blow it all, and get out alive. And then you do it again. What do I mean by disruption? Disruption in this context is using your burst to chunk health bars and apply affliction, which will slowly lose them the fight if ignored, and cut their sustain. Some will try to flee, and you have the tools to chase and finish them. Even if not, you've cut their numbers, making you more likely to win the fight. Do not be scared of wasting your affliction on one target, just make sure you get it off, because it's nearly impossible to 1v1 you while you have it ticking. Next up, be unkillable, through your collection of shields, lifesteal, and mobility. The longer the fight goes on, the more value you get from dancing around, drawing attention and wasting cooldowns. Key point, you want to put the enemy team in positions where they have no good options, which I'll elaborate on next. But finally, re-engage. Once you're out and the fight is disrupted, take pot shots on key targets and find other advantageous positions to re-engage from, and clean up once your cooldowns have cycled. The combination of affliction and your teammates hopefully doing something should leave the enemy low enough that you can fly back in and explode them with your abilities and close range shotgun shells. What do I mean by no good decisions? Here's an example. You can throw your cape in one direction and run the other. If they chase you, teleport to the cape. If they follow the cape, you can just walk away. Again, when you've engaged and are in your satchel with affliction ticking them down, the enemy has the choice of waiting for you to emerge from the suitcase to use their key spells and lock you down, or ignore you and take a bunch of damage and let you get out for free. If they're so focused on trying to catch you, it gives your team free reign to push in and capitalize. If they ignore you, you're free to dance around the fight and do whatever you want. Since you have such high and frequent mobility, you can get around the map faster. Split a lane and draw people to you. Quickly rotate and force a fight while the enemy thinks they're getting the drop on you. Absorb all the farm and still be present for fights instead of having to pick between them both. Mobility is one of Pocket's key difference makers. Speaking of movement, I like to say Pocket scales with mobility more than other heroes because it synergizes with his game plan of being slippery. The more mobility you have, the easier it is for you to do your thing. He's set apart from someone like McGinnis, for example, who just wants to run you down holding left click. When you use Barrage, you will move very slowly. However, Barrage carries your momentum if you use it in the air. What this means is that if you, for example, dash jump into Barrage, you will travel along the x-axis in the air at the same speed the dash jump provided you. This makes it easier to avoid taking damage back because you're not a stationary target, while closing the gap and making it easier to land your barrage balls. This applies to Majestic Leap 2, which I consider one of your core items. Kinetic dash is mandatory on most builds for this reason. Dash jump usually costs 2 stamina. Kinetic dash gives you the jump part of that combo for free every 8 seconds. It gives you a way to make your barrage more oppressive early game while giving you another way to engage from distance, letting you save your cape for escape or burst damage. If you can't already dash jump consistently, learn now. You almost always want to use your barrage from an elevated position by surprise. Mid-game, once you get online with core items, you'll be a very vertical character, which gives you a huge advantage in engaging fights. Finally, don't forget to slide, it gives you unlimited ammo. Okay, quickly regarding the skill order. You want to max barrage first, because the tier 3 damage amp increase is a huge power spike. Put 2 points into every other skill, because it gives extra mid-game burst damage on your combo, max affliction second, because it is your ult, and then max satchel or cape depending on which tier 3 ability you value more. Now, on to laning with Pocket, because while a bad lane won't lose you the game, a good lane can catapult you into some very quick wins. When the game starts and you see who you're up against, you need to ask yourself, what are my goals in this laning phase? This could be killing the enemy on respawn, denying as much farm as possible while pressuring tower, or even just surviving. In TCG, there is a concept known as the beatdown. Who is the beatdown in this matchup? Who has the aggression? And who is on the defense? The answer to this is derived from matchup knowledge, and the only way to get it is from experience, so go play some games. Character matchups aren't the be-all and end-all though. Skill is a major factor. Is the guy you're playing against better than you? Is he denying all your souls, pressuring you, and killing you? Sometimes it's better to swallow your pride, stop taking fights, and focus on losing gracefully. All of these concepts are achieved through the items you buy, positioning, where you're pointing your gun, and how you're using your skills. Are you taking a lot of gun trades? Buy a restorative shot. Are you getting poked with little opportunity to fight back? Extra regen. Focus on keeping your farm up so you don't have to waste time post-laning phase catching up in souls. You want to be able to dictate fights, and you can't do that if you're under-farmed. Are you in a passive lane? Buy a high velocity mag and focus on denying souls. Kill the enemy and you want to stay in lane? Buy healing right and get back to full while they respawn, giving you time to push, manipulate the wave, or just not waste time going back to base. These are just some examples, but take a good look at the item store and understand what each 500 soul item does so you can understand when to buy them. While mid to late game itemization is often less flexible, early game is really where you can carve out an edge with superior purchases. Items and their stats change patch to patch, so my goal here is to give you the information you need to make these decisions yourself on the fly, which is what separates players and can let you win lanes you had no business winning on stats alone. Quickly touching on stat scaling, items come in orange, green and purple. While everyone can buy the same set of items, some heroes want different items because they synergize with their kit. Pocket has technically poor spirit scaling compared to the rest of the spirit using roster, but that's only because if it was any higher, he'd be beyond broken. The scaling percentages take into account the ease of use and impact across the roster. For example, a point and click ability is likely to have lower scaling than a skill shot because it will always hit, in theory. Pocket deals a lot of damage off of his skills despite low scaling. You should still play around making your very strong abilities hit hard, because otherwise there's no reason to pick him over a hero whose skills scale better with gun damage. Your burst will not 100 to 0 most heroes unless you're very far ahead, so you need gun damage, like all heroes, to finish people off, have a chance with no cooldowns, and farm the map. So, stats. Every hero scales differently and wants different stats. Across the board, there are a few stats Pocket really wants to let him play his game. Once you get all of these stats going in some form, you will be able to dictate the flow of the game with an iron grip. These are Spirit Resist, Spirit Lifesteal, Mobility, Cooldown Reduction, and of course, Damage. First off is Spirit Resist. It's a little different to the other stats because it's more of a handicap you're expected to patch yourself. Pocket starts with a sizable minus 15% Spirit Resist, which drastically affects your lane matchups early into the game. This is the price you pay for abusing Pocket. Valve know Pocket is slippery, and so want to make it so if you do lock him down, you're more likely to get the kill. Luckily, you can patch this up with smart itemization choices without delaying your power spikes. A few of the early game 500 soul items that work well with Pocket's game plan currently offer Spirit Shields, which can nullify early game ability base damage, letting you take less poke from key abilities like Grey Talon's Charge Shot, for example. Late game, if you're not buying items that offer Spirit Resist as a secondary stat, you can just buy improved Spirit Armor outright to shore up your weakness and surprise enemies once they start buying items that scale their damage sharply. Some of your key items, such as Improved Burst, Diviner's Kevlar, and Mystic Vulnerability, will provide ways to mitigate spirit damage as you come online. Okay, Spirit Lifesteal. There's nothing quite like pressing 3, waiting out its whole duration and healing to full because you have a ton of Spirit Lifesteal and your affliction is ticking on 3 people. Spirit Lifesteal gives you more effective HP to work with that synergizes with his game plan of dipping in and out of fights. Get in, pop abilities and deal burst, get out and let cooldowns refresh while healing, go back in. When the enemy is behind, they won't have the souls to provide the damage to burst you without hard CC commitment, so you can run circles around them. Early game, I buy Enduring Spirit nearly every game because it gives survivability and every stat Pocket wants. Spirit Lifesteal is also an every game buy, while Leech is optional late game depending on whether or not you need it. The Difference Maker, Mobility. The more mobility you have, the easier it is to pull off your game plan. If you use an item active to get on top of your enemy, you have full stamina and cape to escape or reposition with. This is a huge power spike early to mid game and lets you orchestrate your fights easier out of view. Majestic Leap versus Warpstone is a hotly debated topic. I personally prefer Majestic Leap because it lets you get into the fight quickly and undetected from above. The price you pay for this is the lack of versatility, as you can't use it in combat and it provides less of a power spike due to low offensive stats. You can take both, but you really only need one, and the 3000 souls could be halfway towards Diviner's Kevlar. Phantom Strike is great for making picks on isolated targets because you get on top of them and dump all your damage while they kind of can't fight back. It's situational though. I take it against strong Vindictors for the mental tilt that it inflicts when you just teleport on top of their head while they're flying in the air. Cooldown reduction, which is self-explanatory. Using your skills is your main source of damage, disruption, and survivability, so you want them up as often as possible. If you notice you only get one rotation of your skills off in a mid-game fight, you should get your CDR stats online ASAP. Superior cooldown lets you pick an ability to have 8% extra CDR, and you usually want this on your 3 for more burst damage and survivability, or 4 if the game has devolved into constant brawling and you need it up for every engagement. Soul Rebirth is great for those late game deciding team fights, do not underestimate it. Finally, damage. Buying purples gives you spirit power, buying oranges gives you % weapon damage. As you buy items, you will get stronger by default. Lots of items come with extra damage when you meet certain criteria. Pocket likes to be close to people and shoot before and after his combo, so keep an eye out for items that synergize with this. For example, Mystic Shot adds spirit damage scaling with your spirit power to your shots every few seconds. This is a great way to get more purple out of your orange, so to speak. Meanwhile, Pristine Emblem gives every single stat Pocket wants, so buying it is kind of a no-brainer. Soul Shredder Bullets is an orange which amps your spirit damage and gives you spirit lifesteal against the target. If you've paid attention to anything I've said, you can understand why this is a good buy for Pocket. Improved Burst is a must-buy because almost all your skills can proc it instantly, resulting in more raw damage that still hits against tanky enemies due to the bonus damage scaling with the enemy's max health. And now to touch on some other items of note. Monster Rounds, at the time of writing, is kind of OP. If your opponent buys it, you need to buy it to match or they will just shove you. For 500 souls, it gives so much advantage and utility that scales all through the game it's hard to play without. Helps you take towers, farm jungle, and push lanes. Anti-heal is good, considering how easily you can apply it and how healing is just everywhere, but Affliction at rank 2 already cuts healing by 60%, and you should be trying to use it every engagement anyway. Ethereal Shift. Some games you need this. 2 invulnerability periods to heal off of while the enemy ticks down can be fight winning alone. More often than not, your 3 will be up after your shift ends, so you really can just spend 7.5 seconds completely invulnerable in some fights. Unstoppable, for if the enemy is good, you might just need this to do your thing without immediately getting CC'd and shut down. And then finally, Curse. If there is only one real threat on the enemy team, you can just press this button on his head and make him useless while you explode him. So let's put it all together in the context of a game. You want to get out of the laning phase ahead by itemizing smart and taking strong trades and kills with your barrage stacks. Once you've done that, roam the early to mid game and gank for kills using your superior mobility. Take this time to turbo farm the jungle and soul machines, catch waves here and there, and shove lanes. When fights start breaking out, only show up when you know you can create an impact and grab some kills and win the fight. Execute the get in, get out, get in gameplay to do so with little counterplay and stay alive to push objectives after. You can get a little cocky and in their face to tilt them, which will make them play worse, so always play with your food a little. Make sure you're abusing your evasiveness to stay alive and keep the snowball going all the way to the enemy patron. In conclusion, Pocket is a very unique run and gun style hero that excels at playing his own game and blowing wide holes in teamfights. When the enemy is coordinated, he has a much harder time executing his game plan, so he makes for a great solo playing pub stomper. You annoy and outstat half the roster if you know what you're doing and itemize effectively. Valve hate Pocket, so enjoy him before he becomes dumpster tier garbage. Thanks for watching. You can find my build by searching Crackhead Pocket in the builds browser. I'll be keeping this updated patch to patch because Pocket is the only hero that I play.